Gentlemen, we're back on again. There is just one thing before we begin taking the calls that I want to ask about, and this goes to you, Jay. You think that NASA has found out something about our sun. Now, that's something that I would think Stanton would be familiar with since he deals with things nuclear. It's nothing but a big nuclear fission reaction, I believe. So what fusion, I'm sorry. So what is it that we've found out?
Well, this is actually how I got started on my whole journey years ago. I discovered a monument in the south of France, which I proceeded to decipher, which is actually in my first two books. And it appears to be about a 400-year-old monument in which a secret society or some group of men has inscribed a series of symbols, which no doubt, after you see my interpretation, say that there was a gigantic CME, or coronal mass ejection, at some point in the past, which killed a lot of people. And they're warning about it in the future. And, in fact, it's I believe it's a group of Freemasons, and that this may be one of the tenets of Freemasonry is to keep this memory of this outburst from the sun alive, and also pass it down into the people of the future. And when first book came out in 1999, I was actually criticized by NASA for being a fearmonger, and I actually got in some debates with NASA. And then about 2004. All of a sudden, NASA changed their mind, and they began warning that there was this chance that we could be thrown into the 6th century BC, in the flash of an instant by a coronal mass ejection, frying everything up, which I had not really talked about. I was talking about the human part of it. And so now NASA's in full tilt boogie about coronal mass ejections and protecting nuclear power plants, because if they get fried, the radiation is going to go crazy, and which I'm gratified to hear and see. But at the same time, I think it's really a really big concern that we should have, and we're not doing enough to protect ourselves from this. It's going to happen. It happened in 1859, and it's going to happen again. And we're a wired society, and we're going to pay deeply when this happens. And I think we should take care of it.
All right. Here's somebody I think might agree with you from Cleveland, Ohio, something about Freemasons. Hello?
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
I've heard various thoughts and conspiracy about Freemason being involved with the Buzz Aldrin thing and the flag being brought to the moon. I wonder what your guest thought about that.
Well, I don't know of any connection between Buzz and Freemasons. I've met Buzz, but I don't know whether there's a Freemason attribute or connection at all. Do you, Jay?
Well, actually, yeah. I again, this is Buzz's words, not mine. Buzz has admitted that he performed a Freemasonic operation when he was on the moon. Now, I don't believe he went to the moon, so I don't believe the story, but why would he be performing a Freemasonic operation if he wasn't already a Freemason? Why is he saying this? And I'm just telling you, this is widely reported. It's not some speculation or something.
Yeah, I'm a Freemason, and I'm so thankful for you guys' thoughts on that. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much for the call. And let's go to Jason on Skype. Hello.
Hello, Art. So I had a question about how the flags in the disturbance on the moon got there if we never landed there, and the fact that several countries also tracked the Apollo missions via radar to the moon. So if we never went, how would they be able to track that? And India's probe, China's probe, and Japan's probe all spotted the disturbance on the moon. So
I never said we didn't go to the moon. I said that we didn't. What we were shown is fake.
Right.
So there's a big difference.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I don't think we're going to get a big argument on that. There should be an argument, though, about whether we went to the moon as you suggest we did, Jay, or whether we went to the moon as we were told we went to the moon. I mean, were we lied to? Stanton, do you think we were lied to about all that?
I mean, about
the whole damn thing.
I don't think we had a different No. I guess the simplest answer is no. Okay, I don't think we went there in a fancy electromagnetic propulsion system, or an unspoken about system.
Right.
There's several different questions here. I do think we went there. I don't think the astronauts worked on a soundstage somewhere somebody impersonating astronauts, which makes it sound even worse, I guess. But
it does.
So there's a whole gray area here, if you'll pardon the expression.
Okay.
Speaking of gray, Stanton, I'd like to point something out. I'm glad you brought that up. When the Chinese sent the jade rabbit, to the moon a year ago or whatever, they took pictures of the moon's surface. You agree that's probably true, right? But the surface of the moon is brown in those pictures, not slate gray like it is in all the Apollo photographs. And I haven't heard anybody explain why is there such a huge difference in the color of the moon between the two operations, especially when you consider that the astronauts were shooting ectochrome, which is far superior to digital. So I don't know.
I'm glad to hear you say that last thing. I get people telling me we live in a digital world and everything's more advanced than it was before, and I say, hey,
no.
I used to use slides. They got better resolution than my PowerPoint does.
Film is so much better than digital. There's no way you can compare the two ever.
All right, very quickly, outside the country, Lee L. Hello. Hello? Lee L. High, or whatever your name is, you're on the air or you're not.
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. So go ahead.
Hi, pleasure to speak to you.
Good to speak to you. Where are you?
I'm actually in Coventry in the UK. It's actually my 40th birthday today, so it's really
Happy
good
birthday.
to get through to you guys.
Okay.
Okay, so how about if I play sort of devil's advocate with what Richard C. Hoagland would probably say afterwards?
Sure.
And obviously we've got two problems here. We've got a lot of the pictures and the video, they really look fake, and it's really difficult to say that the whole moon landing could have been faked, from the whole operation with NASA and such. So how about when they landed, there was some talk of a conversation that they saw things following them around, and that it was cut at that point. And that was maybe where they cut to Stanley Kubrick's sort of, pre-film, just in case something happened.
Well, that's exactly right. They pre-filmed it in the 60s, mid 60s, and it was just they pre-filmed it to ensure that if anything went wrong, they had this film. And then slowly, especially when I believe Nixon came in to the picture, he's like, I've just become president. I'm 1 year into my presidency. I'm damn well not going to have this kind of disgrace happen in front of me if these guys die on camera and I have to get up and do their eulogy. I'm not going to have that. So you can't assure me that this is going to go 100%. So we'll go with the film. And if it goes 100%, then we're fine. If it doesn't, then no one will ever know. And this is the guy that did Watergate. Come on.
We got a double cosmic Watergate here, huh?
All right. Thank you, caller. I appreciate it. All the way from Great Britain. Well, if you two are going to sit here and agree that all this possibly could have been faked, then who's to say that some of the other things that people like Richard Hoagland have said about things that are on the moon, he believes, might not be true?
Well, they are true. There's stuff all over the moon. And anybody who sits and examines the aerial photography of the moon, which is where Hoagland is right, when Hoagland is sticking with the lunar orbiter stuff, with the Apollo stuff from the air, wherever it was taken, with the stuff taken in orbit, that stuff is real. And what he's finding is, it's jaw-dropping. There's domes, there's square-shaped buildings, looks like even highways in some cases. So, I don't know where it's from. I'm not going to speculate. I think he's right. It's ancient, and it's been there for, maybe millions of years.
Stanton, are you ready to agree with that?
Well, I'm ready to say that the lunar orbiters, the recent ones, have shown footprints on the moon, implying that we had been there, and somebody had been there.
Somebody with shoes.
Tracks and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah.
Well, again,
Okay.
I totally agree that we went to the moon, so I'm not going to argue that point.
Okay.
Yeah, but how we got there is a big difference between you two.
Yeah.
I'm impressed with the Saturn V. It's a big old monster.
Yes, it sure is.
Do you know that they
Was.
actually got rid of all the blueprints to the Saturn V, and none exist at all to this day? You know that?
No, I didn't.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know
that
it, but
the lunar orbiter, all
surprised.
of the videotape of the lunar orbiters, beautiful imagery of the moon, all that tape is rotting in a McDonald's in Pasadena, California, an old McDonald's that's been closed down. It's just rotting in there. There's no air conditioning. This magnetic tape is all falling apart. NASA doesn't care about these images. It's a crime. I'm sorry.
Probably giving cans of it out to people ordering quarter pounders. On Skype, you're on the air with these two. Hello.
Hello, Art, and those two. Clarification, or actually a correction, the Apollo 1 fire was in January of 67, not 64.
Okay, get good and close
what?
to the mic on your computer, please.
Okay, the other thing, now
That's
let
a
me
really good
understand
point.
it. We landed on the moon, but what we saw on Earth was fake. Is that the premise?
That's Jay's premise,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, earlier, I think it was Jay who mentioned something about Kubrick supposedly faking the footage.
That's right.
I sent you an email about a film called Room 237, which
I'm in the
explores that, and it's
I'm
on
in the
Netflix and Amazon if you want to check it out.
Jay, you know about that?
I'm the star of the film, so yeah, I know all
Yeah,
about
I
it.
guess you do.
Okay, well, check that out, Art. I think you'll be kind of fascinated by the questions that it raises and also the explanations that it offers.
All right.
So
that's a
that's
great
my
point,
3
Art.
cents worth for tonight.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
He's got a great point because we never touched on it, and I don't think we should on this show, but maybe some other show. But in 237, what they do is they cover all of these people's opinions of the movie The Shining. And my opinion of the movie The Shining, which I believe it closes the case, is that every time that Stanley Kubrick deviates from the Stephen King book, he's telling you the story about him having to fake the Apollo moon landings. And I have the case I make is deadly. And even Christiana Kubrick wrote me and told me how impressed she was by my case. So there you go.
All right.
Yeah.
What did Vivian say?
Christina. Vivian, Vivian won't talk to me, and Vivian is a Scientologist living in Texas, and she won't talk to me. This is Stanley Kubrick's daughter, and she won't talk to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Johnny.
I haven't talked to her either.
Johnny on the international Skype, you're on. Hello, Johnny. Johnny Webb, it says. Are you there? Yes or no? Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I've got you now. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, the question to your panel is, it's the Van Allen radiation belt. I understand, along with Gus Grissom, Van Allen was killed in a car crash with his wife. Can they explain how today we still get through the Van Allen radiation belt?
I don't think Van Allen was killed in a car crash. Was he, Stanton? I don't think.
I don't know, but again, the radiation levels, as long as you don't stay in the wrong place for too long, unshielded, et cetera, are not deadly. In other words, it's something you have to take into account. It's something, but I've worked around radiation for a lot of years, and you can tolerate a good amount of it. You sleep in the same bed with somebody for a year, you get a measurable dose of radiation from them.
Well, we used suits in for Fukushima, for instance. Why are these spacesuits so good for the Van Allen but not for Fukushima?
Entirely different situation. The kind of radiation, the energy levels of the radiation, and the duration of staying there, living there, I was going to say. But Fukushima is entirely different kind of situation. High-energy gamma rays from nuclear fuel, that was a mess. No question.
Well, even then at Fukushima, there's a farmer that only lives 2 miles away. He's still there because he wanted to take care of his animals, and the animals are all still alive, and he's still alive. Just saying, he's only two
You're
miles
right.
away.
It's not totally deadly because there's an accident and a large release of radiation. Doesn't mean everybody keels over. This is not Hiroshima or Nagasaki. Entirely different situation.
All right,
I agree with you on the Van Allen belts, and I don't usually ever use it in any arguments that I make. So.
Good.
Okay. All right, you two, hold tight. We're at a break point. All right, back to our two distinguished guests, and I must say you've both done a very, very good job this night. I've got a call for you from, I think, all the way on the other side of the world in Bangkok. Hello.
Wow.
Hello.
Hello, this is Charlie in Bangkok, and I've got a delay on one of the signals.
That's quite all right, Charlie. Proceed.
I'm with you real quickly. Two comments. Gus Grissom, the Lemon Man, was murdered. And two things that Art knows about. Many things Art knows that he's smarter than his guests. A lot of the time.
No, I'm not.
He keeps asking, why do the astronauts who went to the moon keep saying they have no memories? Last thing, question. Are you two gentlemen exasperated with people who will not just build a door the same size as the ship, put on the suit, and try to get through it?
All right, one at a time. You want to answer?
Yeah, well, I've actually asked myself that question. The problem is that you can't find a suit. I mean, there's one at the Smithsonian, but they won't let you use it, so you can't do a proper measurement on it. And it's amazing. You can't. All these suits have just disappeared. You can't find any of them. Just like the blueprints to Saturn V, you can't find them. They're gone. So
this is very frustrating, I must admit. Stanton?
Well, I feel the same frustration. My first thought is I want to talk to a bunch of astronauts, and they're going by the wayside too. And where do you get a straight answer? And it's hard to tell. Guys can do all kinds of strange things. There's some very crowded airplanes where you say, how the heck did the pilot get in there? Mm-hmm. Single-seater kind of things. And I don't know. People will work hard to get certain things done. And what we are dealing with here also is a failure of NASA to look at things from the public's viewpoint. I've felt that NASA has lacked leadership for a very long time. What they needed was an Admiral Rickover, the nuclear submarine, nuclear aircraft carrier, et cetera, who said, that's where we're going, folks. You don't want to go there? Get off the ship.
Richard's coming up next, and I can see him smiling right now.
I would like to address that, actually, what he just brought up.
Go ahead.
James Oberg was incensed by the 2004 documentary on Fox called We Never Went to the Moon. He was totally incensed. I think you guys know who James Oberg is. He's a science writer, really good science writer.
Yes.
And huge man, too, by the way, like 6'8". But
yes.
He went to NASA and he got a $25,000 advance to write a book proving that they went to the moon. He became exasperated because he kept asking NASA for this file and that file and this picture and that picture and this video and that video, and they would never help him. Finally, he returned the advance and gave up writing the book, not because he didn't want to write the book, but because NASA wouldn't cooperate with him. Think about that.
Stanton?
I'm not surprised. As I say, I worked on the space program, and everybody I worked with thought we'd have a base on the moon before the end of the last century.
Boy, no kidding.
And it sure as heck hasn't happened. And so that's what I mean by leadership, guts, if you want to put it that way.
All right. Well, Jacob. Hold on, guys. We're in calls. Jacob on Skype. You're on the air.
Good evening. I had a question for Jay. If you believe that we had been to the moon, but what we were shown on video was not in fact what happened, then what would have happened with all the astronauts who actually went up there? Were they the same people, but under different circumstances? Or did they just kind of disappear out of history and never get heard from again?
I don't know. I'm not really much of a speculator, but all I have to do is look at that press conference on YouTube with Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, and Michael Collins to know I can read body language. I'm a former investigative journalist also. I can tell when somebody's lying. And these guys look like their dog just died. I mean, they don't look happy or elated or feel like they look successful. They look like they're kind of ashamed. And watch it and make up your own mind. Don't let me influence you.
All right. Columbus, Ohio, you're on the air.
Hi, Art. Awesome show. I'm finding it wildly entertaining. The two things I called about, one, you guys keep calling the alternative propulsion electromagnetic. It's actually electrogravitic.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, there's even argument about whether it exists, so whatever we call it.
If you go read any of Townsend Brown's work, it's all children's toys, basically. I mean, so much has been kept. But I'm a professional photographer, and my question, I saw a while back they sold one of the Hasselblads they claim went to the moon, and there was no shielding on that camera whatsoever. And, if you shoot a lot of film, you know that radiation obviously is a problem because the airports and X-rays, but heat also plays a big role, and unfiltered sun on a camera like that full of film would just nuke it. So did they have any kind of, I haven't seen any, but did they shield those cameras in any way when they took them up there?
No way. No, if you go to the Hasselblad site, Hasselblad provided the cameras. They actually show you the cameras are just regular Hasselblads, unshielded, and you're right. Unshielded cameras in 250-degree heat. It's actually that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard as a photographer. I know there's no way that this can happen. But you bring up another point, which I really want to talk about, which I haven't yet, and that is the composition of the photography on the moon. Now, the astronauts had the camera on their chest. They could not look through the viewfinder. They were just clicking away. But if you look, and I've been to Houston, I've gone through the entire photo archives of NASA's Apollo missions, and you look, and it's one stunning photograph after another. It's just, and then you think about, Stanley Kubrick got hired by Look magazine to be their top photographer when he was 19 years old. And you look at these photographs, and there's no way. These are amateur shots by guys who aren't looking through the lens. These are carefully composed and lit shots. And as a photographer, they're just very well done. That's all I can say.
Well, I always wondered who set up the cameras to, initially, to show them getting out, and the thing tilted, to watch them go away. I always kind of wondered how they did that stuff. But like even now, there's a
you're bringing up a great point because there's a 4-second delay between the video camera on the moon and Houston because of the miles between. And yet when the rocket takes off, the camera follows it perfectly.
For Dark Matter News, I'm Leo Ashcraft. A drone dropped a package of drugs into a prison yard while inmates were outside, sparking a fight. It contained almost 1/4 ounce of heroin, over 2 ounces of marijuana, and more than 5 ounces of tobacco. Smith said there had been instances of drones breaching security, and the agency is taking steps to increase awareness and improve drone detection. Video footage showed the drone over recreation yards immediately before a fight began. An investigation determined the drone dropped a package intended for an inmate on the North Recreation Yard, and it was then thrown over a fence to the South Recreation Yard. Last year, the Mansfield Post of the Ohio Highway Patrol increased efforts to watch and catch criminals who throw contraband over prison fences. Pitcher, Oklahoma. It's a ghost town and former city in Ottawa County, Oklahoma. Formerly a major national center of lead and zinc mining at the heart of the Tri-State Mining District. Over a century of unrestricted subsurface excavation dangerously undermined most of Pitcher's town buildings and left giant piles of toxic metal-contaminated mine tailings heaped throughout the area. The discovery of the cave-in risks, groundwater contamination, and health effects associated with the chat piles and subsurface shafts, particularly an alarming 1996 study which showed lead poisoning in 34% of the children in Pitcher. This eventually prompted a mandatory evacuation and buyout of the entire township by the state of Oklahoma and the incorporation of the town, along with the similarly contaminated satellite towns of Treese and Cardin. An F4 tornado, which destroyed or damaged 150 homes in May 2008, accelerated the exodus. The town ceased official operations on September 1st, 2009. A new comet is currently making its inaugural trip to the inner solar system from the Oort cloud, where it likely originated. New images show a tremendous amount of dust streaming away from it, along with strange blobs that have attracted the attention of astronomers. The comet, in addition to being unusually dusty, appears to be jetsoning weird clumps. Their explanation is since the clumps are moving directly away from the sun, it appears they are being driven by the solar wind. The fact that the clumps do not change in size as they blow away suggests they are being held together by a magnetic field of the solar wind. This means they are likely charged particles or ionized gas, which are sensitive to magnetic fields. Likely candidates are ionized potassium and sodium that have been roasted out of the rocks on the comet as it passes close to the sun. Another possibility is the clumps are dust in the process of exploding. If true, this could explain why comet tails have lines that make them appear as if they're combed. Surgeons in Manchester have performed the first bionic eye implant in a patient with the most common cause of sight loss in the developed world. Ray Flynn, age 80, has dry age-related macular degeneration, which has led to the total loss of his central vision. He is using a retinal implant, which converts video images from a miniature video camera worn on his glasses. He can now make out the direction of white lines on a computer screen using the retinal implant. Mr. Flynn said he was delighted with the implant and hoped in time it would improve his vision sufficiently to help him with day-to-day tasks like gardening and shopping. The images from his glasses are converted into electrical pulses and transmitted wirelessly to an array of electrodes attached to the retina. The electrodes stimulate the retina's remaining cells, which send the information to the brain. In a test 2 weeks after surgery, Mr. Flynn was able to detect the pattern of horizontal, vertical, and diagonal lines on a computer screen using the implant, with his eyelids closed. Macular degeneration can be a devastating condition, and many people are now affected as we live longer. These are early trials, but in time, this research may lead to a really useful device for people who lose their central vision. I'm Leo Ashcraft for Dark Matter News.
What Jay said about not being able to find the Saturn V blueprints just simply isn't true. They're in Huntsville, Alabama.
Oh, really?
That's what he says.
Well, I went there and I asked, and they wouldn't give them to me or show me copies. So.
Okay, that doesn't mean they don't exist, does it?
Well, I guess it could mean that. Not sure. I know this. Bill Wood, the rocket scientist, told me that a guy was told he was working at NASA and he was told to destroy all the blueprints for the Saturn V, and he was really upset by the order, and he did destroy all of the blueprints of the Saturn V but one, and he kept it, and he took it home with him to keep it, and about 2 weeks later he got a knock at the door, and it was the FBI telling him to give up that set of blueprints.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, we pretty well destroyed the space program tonight.
Well, but think about it, Stanton. The Russians are launching our guys into space. We don't even have a launch vehicle.
I am very well aware of that, and it bothers the heck out of me.
Me too. I'm sick.
Let me give you another example. I worked on nuclear rockets, and people think, oh, that's science fiction stuff. Well, Westinghouse Astronuclear Lab, Aerojet General, and Los Alamos each operated a fission nuclear rocket reactor propulsion system on the ground back in the 60s, mind you. The Los Alamos one operated at a power level of 4,000 megawatts. That's twice the power of Hoover Dam, incidentally. And we had our great test. It was my high point in my career, and they canceled the damn program. In other words,
did they take it dark? Did they take it dark? Yeah, that's what I'm contending.
I don't know. Well,
I'm contending that they're taking.
You're contending what? One at a time.
Well, Paul LaViolette,
yes.
a good friend of mine, and he worked in the patent office for a few years, and he kept noticing that he would approve a patent, and then it would not. People above him would stop it, and then he would notice that the patent would go dark. And I'm contending to you that every time one of these inventions comes up, it makes a brief flurry in the news, and then it goes dark. Everything seems to be happening like this, and I'm contending explaining to you that's exactly what's going on. They're going dark, and they're contributing to this overall mission of creating this kind of breakaway civilization, as Richard Dolan puts it, where they're 60, 70 years ahead of us, and that means a lot. Think about technology 70 years ago and now, and there was no transistors, no computers, and so if they are that far ahead, and the reports I get from my insiders is that this is the correct view, that they are that far ahead and that they're really advanced, and they have all sorts of incredible gizmos that, including a box the size of a shoebox that apparently can create energy out of nothing and run huge machines, and they have free energy, and they have all these things, and they're hiding it, and I think it's time for this stuff to be released. I think the Earth, we don't need any more Fukushimas. We don't need any more oil burning. We can, if they really have this technology, I think we have to really start kind of forcing the issue. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing this whole thing about the moon and Stanley Kubrick, is I'm trying to get these issues forced out into the open, because my insiders tell me they have amazing technologies.
All right, we're supposed to be at the phones. Kokomo, Indiana, hello.
Hi, it's Steve from Indiana.
Yes.
And Art, it's a pleasure talking to you. And Mr. Friedman, I followed your career for years, and I'm entitled to agree with you. And the reason I say that is, how would you explain, if we had such advanced technology at the time and we were using it, how would you explain the Apollo 13 that Tom Hanks brought to light?
Okay.
What do I have to explain? You got some smart astronauts doing clever things.
Okay.
I didn't say that wasn't real.
I didn't either. So.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. Agreeing again. Let's see. Let's go to Tim on Skype. Hello, Tim.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going okay.
Awesome. Good to talk to you, Art.
Unless you're at NASA, they're probably ticked.
An asset. Yeah, I am an asset. Yes.
So?
Okay, so this question's for Jay. Jay, I know you're a filmmaker, and I'm aware of your stance in the world, which is amazing. We need that, actually. People need to hear what Jay has to say. He's got a lot of great things to say, and it's not just him. It's information that's on this planet that he has in him, and many people have in them, but they're keeping quiet.
Okay, do you have a question?
Yeah. How do we see your new film, Jay? The Last Avatar.
Oh, The Last Avatar? Yeah, Avatar opened yesterday on Vimeo, and you just go to thelastavatar.movie.com, or if you want to watch it, you just watch.thelastavatarmovie.com.
Okay, it is a story of what?
It's a story of a guy who is pretty much a failure in life, who realizes that he's actually a dynamic, special human being and he tries to change the world, which is what I think all of us should be trying to do right now, because the world's in pretty bad shape.
That it is.
Yep.
All right.
It's a good movie. I think people would like it. I think you'd like it, Art. I'll send you a free link, and you can watch it in your spare time.
All right. Montreal, Quebec, you're on the air.
Yes, hello. I'm looking at a Freemasonry page for British Columbia and Yukon, and they've got Buzz Aldrin belonging to the Clear Lake Lodge in Seabrook, Texas. And they also have Grissom, who died in 1967, as belonging to the Mitchell Lodge of Indiana, Mitchell, Indiana.
And what does that mean? What do you think that means?
They were all Freemasons, Art. Just like all the people that worked on Trinity were Freemasons.
Okay, no, my question was, what does that mean?
Well, it means that you'll keep a secret. That's really what it means. You take an oath as a Freemason to protect your brothers, and if you make everybody on the project a Freemason, then everybody has to be quiet.
Then you keep the secret.
Oath.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how they do it.
Stanton, you have any argument with any of that?
Well, there have been people keeping secrets for a very long time. Look, I don't know if you've had anybody on from NSA, but they have released 156 top-secret Umbra UFO documents, the problem pages of documents. The only trouble is you can only read one sentence per page. It hasn't had any impact anywhere. Are they lying to us? I mean, are they keeping secrets from us? No question about it. So it's not just Freemasons who keep secrets. It's NSA types and CIA types, blacked out documents. Where you can read 3 words a page, and the media ignores it.
Redacted. All right, here's somebody on Skype. It says truth up there. Let's see what he's got.
Good morning, Art, to your guest as well. Roswell's from Virginia.
Thank you.
Michael. All right, this has been an interesting, if disjointed program. I'm not entirely sure what Mr. Widener is getting at. So far as I can tell, he claims that NASA did in fact go to the moon, but the footage we were all shown was a fakery produced by, I guess, Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, you've got it. That's right.
Okay. All right, so I got that covered. What I'm struggling to understand then is for what purpose did NASA produce this cover-up? What was it they were trying to hide? Thanks, Art. Shout out to Belgab, and I'll take the answer off the air.
Okie dokie.
They were trying to hide many things. One, they were trying to hide their real technology, I believe, from anybody and everybody. Two, they didn't want to. It was too chancy to take the photographs on the ground where they may actually get alien artifacts, which are all over the place up there. And three, they wanted to make sure that the news was always good and it was never bad. And so they faked it also to make sure that everybody in the space program looked good. And believe me, they do those kinds of things. Also, Edgar Mitchell told James Fox, the filmmaker, who's a friend of mine, he confronted Edgar. He's friends with Edgar, and he said, "Hey, Edgar, do you think there's any possibility that some of the stuff was faked, like Widener is saying?" And Edgar said, with a twinkle in his eye, I quote, he said, "Oh, well, we might have faked a few things."
Oh, did he really say that?
Yeah, that's what he was told me.
Do you have? I don't suppose you have that on tape.
No, but he'll say it. I bet James Fox will say it. I mean, he said it was just matter-of-factly to him. So,
We might have faked a few things.
Yep, with a twinkle in his eye.
Twinkle. Fort Smith, Arkansas. You're on the air. Hello.
Yes, this is Mike from Fort Smith.
Right.
A couple things here. I just want to make a comment about the moon. Why isn't that none of these other nations have landed any of their astronauts or cosmonauts on the moon? And then I've got a short story here of something I've seen in 2011.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I don't have time for the short story, but I do have time for the question, and it's a good one. Why?
Yeah, it is a good one.
Yeah, why haven't some of the other technologically advanced and advancing nations, we have many of those right now, landed somebody on the moon, or will they?
Well, China expects to.
I know. China's working at it.
It's difficult.
And India, too, I think. And Japan.
Probably, but again, it's very difficult. The radiation problems, the solar radiation, the synchrotron radiation, there's a lot of problems being on the surface of the moon that no one is actually talking about. NASA has put out many papers recently warning about how dangerous it is out in outer space and on the moon and going to Mars without actually ever considering that they actually went there and everybody was fine. So there's a great contradiction within NASA about the whole thing.
Okay, let's go to Ken on Skype. Ken, hello.
Hi, Jay. Hi, Stan. I talked to you, the last caller, last night. I hope I'm not the last caller tonight. I'm a retired aerospace engineer. I'm also a Mason. And
well, then you obviously can't talk to us, right?
Yeah, I can. And I'm also certified in metallurgy and aluminum non-ferrous alloys and optical emission spectroscopy. What I wanted to tell you is there's a connection. You mentioned about the 400-year CME warning that was on, Jay. And I've come up with a premise. I think that is really shocking. It's about the valve vortices. There's 12 of them on this Earth. And they're made up of aluminum alloy that is isotope 26. And they're placed around the globe at north and south hemispheres in an even pattern, almost like a stator on a motor. And I've been trying to correlate that with what we're seeing with the sun CME, the noises in the atmosphere and the grinding noises that Linda was talking about last week.
Yeah.
And
I don't get it. Everybody's talking about the sun. The sun is now going quiet. We're coming out of the sun cycle. You have to look really hard to see any sunspots at all, much less major eruptions. But what do I know?
The point is, what we're looking at here with this reduction in the magnetic fields of the Earth is a potential for a magnetic flip. And I think that those valve vortices were placed there intentionally.
Okay.
And it had to be created from a high-intensity gamma proton ray beam directed from space to coordinate that kind of pattern. So I believe that there was a civilization here before, and maybe still here, that we're dealing with the secret societies that we're talking about that are really directing humanity, and they may have actually placed them there to prevent a pole flip. And I'd like to get some comments, Mr. Freeman, from you on that.
Okay, about a pole flip. I'm sure he's about to be killed for what he just said, but go ahead.
I worry about things like that, like CMEs and so forth, and also the fact that we've had a planet here for over 4 billion years, and our recorded history is really very short, and I don't see that we're any smarter than the Greeks were. We know some things they didn't know, but no more intelligent. Greek literature is not children's literature, for example. So I think we are living in a world in which we are quite ignorant about the past. And I think there may very well have been advanced civilizations here. Now, we may be somebody's colony, too. It's a penal colony. They dumped all the bad boys and girls here, and that's why we're so nasty to each other.
Could be.
I can't find another good reason for us to be so nasty. So I think we've got a lot to learn. And, many of things that we accept today were rejected for a long time, not because they were wrong, but because people thought, well, I'm so smart, if that were true, I would know about it, and I don't. Kathleen Martin and I did a book on Science Was Wrong, 14 chapters, each one stimulated by some smart guy saying something stupid, like man will never fly, said a great astronomer. That was 2 months before the Wright brothers' first flight. The English astronomer Royal said space travel is utter bilge a year before Sputnik. The vaccination would never do anything about smallpox. There are a whole bunch of these. The original title was supposed to be, It's Impossible, Isn't It?
Well, tonight's show has been more like man didn't fly.
Well, not really, because I'm saying that they did.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. It's very frustrating because you two have agreed at least to the point that I'm a little depressed. Not depressed that you agreed. Depressed what it means. With what it means, it means they lied to us.
Well, they do lie.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Yep.
Hey, look at the Air Force report on Roswell.
Yeah.
Hey, all the way up
tests
until Snowden.
None of which were launched until 6 years after Roswell. But they put a big fat report saying that explains the talk about bodies associated with Roswell. And they got away with it in the New York Times, too.
Stanton, you two, I've got to go. Thank you both very much. The show just ended way, way, way before I wanted it to. Stanton, I'll have you back. Jay Widener, I'll definitely have you back, too. So thank you both, and good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, all. Wow. You know, when you do a program like this, you never know what to expect. And trust me when I tell you, I didn't expect any of this. But then again, that's live radio for you. From the high desert to the world, all of you, thank you, and good night.